both had started a peace process and appointed a mediator. There is one important difference between the Nazi invasion of 1940 and the Islamic invasion of today. The Nazis declared they had no hostile intentions. They didn't impose a Nazi government on the Danes. They even allowed democratic elections to take place. In fact, they claimed that they had come to the country in order to save us from being invaded by the British and to spare Denmark from the ravages of war. After a few years, as I mentioned, the Danes had had enough of this peaceful occupation and started a resistance movement that, according to Viscount Montgomery, was second to none in Europe. And some of the Danes went on the counter-offensive against the Wehrmacht. The leaders of the present-day Islamic onslaught on Denmark and the West make no bones about their intention to eventually impose Sharia law on the infidel population and thus reduce Denmark's indigenous population to a state of dimitude, that is, slaves in their own country. The leaders of the Sharia, the leaders of the Ummah, don't hide the fact that they want to abolish our democratic constitution, the rule of law, equality before the law, and freedom of speech, and impose their theocratic totalitarianism. All this they openly declare, and amazingly, our elites refuse to believe them. Even worse, they pretend not to believe. Not only that, our elites, politicians, academic experts, church leaders, the mainstream press do their utmost to harass, malign, persecute and prosecute anyone who dares to tell the truth about what is happening to our countries. I myself, as Robert alluded to, have just been through a 2-year-long court battle that went all the way to the Danish Supreme Court, where I was eventually acquitted of racism and hate speech by a unanimous Supreme Court led by Denmark's Chief Justice. It couldn't get any better than that. It was expensive, it took time, and I could have spent that time doing something better, but so be it. Interestingly, the public prosecutor knew, even before President Charles, that there was nothing to prosecute me for. The point was to demonstrate to anyone daring to challenge Islam and the leaders of the Muslim Ummah that they had better be prepared for a lengthy and costly court battle if they were to insist on their right to speak out. That was the point of that 2-year-long battle. So there's no doubt that the adherents of freedom are up against a wall. We who are gathered here today do, however, as I see it, have two strategic advantages over the aiders and abettors of the Islamic ascendancy. First of all, after years of study and observation, we know not only what the final objectives are of the Islamists, but also how and by what means they aim to achieve them. We know that whoever invented Muhammad, the warlord, was the most gifted military strategist the world has known, far surpassing the likes of Sun Tzu and Clausewitz. The Islamic way of warfare is more diversified, all-encompassing, and more subtle than anything conceived by the military theoreticians that are usually studied at our military academies. Open violence is only a part of it, and if need be, Islamic war can be waged by non-violent means, as we've heard today, but with effects as decisive and as irreversible as those obtained at Stalingrad and in Normandy. We know that our enemies know that we know, so that is only a limited strategic advantage. Our decisive advantage in the struggle ahead is that we have truth on our side. Woo! whereas our opponents are masters of lies and deceit, as mandated by their doctrine of Taqiyya. Over the long haul, lies can only be upheld by means of coercion. Otherwise, we're bound to wither when exposed to, they're bound to wither or when exposed to the occurrence of the real world. And this is already happening. More and more people doubt and do not believe what is in the mainstream press. In Sweden, only 24% of the population trust journalists, and for very good reason. This is why, in conclusion, my colleague Ingrid Carlquist, sitting down there, and myself have decided to launch a new international newspaper called Dispatch International. I can see it's on the table there, and you're welcome to bring it home. Read it. It will be published regularly from the 3rd of January in 4 languages: Danish, Swedish, English, and German. We hope to bring it out in print form, but if there's not enough demand for that, it will certainly be put out weekly on the internet, and you can subscribe to it. I urge you to do so, because we really need a new form of press. We need new newspapers. We need press, papers that will print the truth and not lies and lies and lies, which is what we've been exposed to in Denmark and in Europe over these past decades, and I'm sure you all know that. I don't think the American press is much better than the one. So we are attempting now to do an international newspaper with international coverage, international content, that could sort of bridge the gap between Europe and North America and also other parts of the world. So please receive it and read it and subscribe to it. Thank you very much.